Given it is the holiday time of the year, I thought it would be beneficial for you all to hear more podcasts from other men that are fighting for our rights as a man in this gynocentric world. Peter Lloyd has been a great voice for all men out there. Peter has been debating feminists, fighting for men's rights, and representing men in the best possible way for a while now. This video is a radio podcast of Peter Lloyd where he highlights how men have it so much worse than ever, the double standards towards men, and how misandry is out of control. Peter also covers what needs to be done in order for men and women to peacefully coexist and be given the same rights and privileges. I hope you enjoy the next podcast by Peter Lloyd.
Just after 25 to 11, I'm Lisa here, and chatting to Peter Lloyd, who is the author of a book, Stand By Your Manhood, an essential guide for a modern man. Now, Peter, are you there?
I am indeed.
Hey!
I'm in a very comfy, cosy studio, and it's so much nicer than running around the streets like Challenge Annika, I tell you, it's good.
What a morning you've had, eh?
What a morning. The things I do for you, see?
Oh, we appreciate it, though. We appreciate it, Peter. So we chatted briefly before then about the book.
Yes.
What do you want people to take away from it? Do you want us as women to consider you more?
Well, I think what I really want is just to kind of take a scalpel to all the non-truths and all the myths and all the lies that have really surrounded gender politics for the last 50 years. I mean, if you speak to any feminist, you will be told that, there's a familiar mantra that all women are oppressed and all men are privileged, and that men should feel guilty for that. And it's just not true. So really what I want the book to do is to just be honest and truthful and rely on fact, which it does. And hopefully that will change the conversation for the better.
And what are the common complaints that you find men have?
Well, the most heartbreaking ones are when fathers can't see their own children. That's always really difficult. But other common complaints are the fact that, we pay the most taxes, but we get the least state support. Boys have become an educated underclass. They're now a minority at universities. They've got record high suicide rates. They're also more likely to be jailed, drafted, and, homeless and shafted by divorce. I mean, one of the biggest things that people often email me about is the criminal sentencing gap. We hear all the time about the pay gap, which we discussed earlier, but if you look at news stories online, whenever there is a case of a woman committing a crime, even if she's got the same criminal background as a man and commits the crime in the same circumstances, she is treated far more leniently than a man would be. And it's these inconsistencies in inequality which really frustrate people, and understandably so.
Yeah, you've got a fan in David and Wickham who's called in saying that he's enjoying listening to what you're saying, Peter, and he thinks that an anti-male attitude is hard engraved in society and that men are even vilified for mentioning things like that. He says he thinks he'll buy your book.
Good, he should do. I think you'd enjoy it. But available now from all good retailers. No. But honestly, it's a really refreshing book for men. I mean, for a lot of women hearing this, they might think, what is this guy talking about?
Yeah.
But for men, I mean, I'm 36, and from the age of about 5, I can remember hearing constantly this pervasive narrative that I was wrong, that I was toxic, that I was a potential, predator, and that I deserved to be brought down a peg or two. And it's really, really destructive. And it's no wonder we're at this point now where all the aforementioned issues are happening. And of course, feminism says it's about equality. People like Emma Watson say, feminism is just about equality between men and women, but it does nothing to address any of these issues. Men who support feminism are turkeys voting for Christmas, I'm afraid.
Now, a lot of men often complain about being called sexist. Being sexist didn't stop Trump making it to the White House. Does that say anything to you?
Well, I think people have got sexism fatigue. I think everything is labelled sexist all the time, apart from when women do the exact same behaviour, and then that's just considered fun. I think Trump's behaviour is sometimes rather crass, and I think he's got a lot of on-the-job learning to do. But do I think he's sexist? I think it's very easy to look at men, and especially men like Trump, in a one-dimensional fashion. But don't forget, he had a mother who he's very proud of, and he still references in his speeches. He's got a wife, he's got a daughter. So his relationship, like all men, his relationship with women is complex, and it's very easy to vilify male heterosexuality as something dangerous and evil, when actually it's just natural and people just need to relax.
Do you think one of the problems, Peter, is that men are not as inclined as women are to point out unfairness to their sex, and what you've decided to do is just that?
Yeah, I really think it's true. I mean, I have no nerve endings when it comes to feminism and peer pressure. I just don't feel it. They just don't frighten me, and I'm not scared to speak up and say something. But a lot of men, I mean, it's very easy to vilify a man and say, well, you're speaking about this issue, so you must be sexist. You must have a deeply ingrained hatred of women. When actually, it's actually just people being honest and having a conversation about real issues.
Well, OK, let's have a look at gender inequality in a slightly different way. Is it ever right to say man up to a boy? Or, for example, how do you feel about the term man flu, Peter?
Well, I always say man flu is our enemy in a Cold War because, it may have raised a chuckle once 10 years ago, but it's now a pretty standard seasonal misery. I mean, I get that.
Yeah, but it's a cold, though, isn't it, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, I get that it's a joke, and the term man flu is really nothing to be offended by. But people are laughing at us, not with us, and I kind of find the implication is that we're big babies, and that men can't handle being ill, which is a narrative we see all the time. And it's not a term I choose to use.
Okay. All right. Well, what about this? A Shanghai shopping centre has recently opened up a new facility called the Husband Nursery. So they've got comfy chairs, even a massage chair, Peter, if you're interested. Magazines, newspapers, TVs. How do you feel about something like that?
I think my brother-in-laws would absolutely love that.
Your brother-in-laws would, but not you.
Well, I actually quite like shopping, so it's not something that I feel I need to take shelter from.
But is that not sexist?
No, I think it's probably quite a shrewd idea. I think the examples like this are just a bit of fun, and I think a lot of the gender debate has had a kind of humour bypass, which I think is really unfortunate. And that's why my book is called what it is, because I think there's lots of room for us to have this conversation and for people not to be offended and triggered and hugely upset by these things. I mean, there are chapters. There's a chapter in the book about divorce, and I call marriage the fraud of the rings. And such is like, so, there is really lots of humour, and I think instances like this shopping mall thing is really just a bit of fun. Yeah,
there's a book as well, I don't know whether you've seen this, called The Contented Little Husband. And
I have seen this, yes.
Say goodbye to temper tantrums and unhelpful habits.
Well, there was a debate recently, wasn't there, about whether men did enough housework around the home, and that it should be split 50-50. And of course, there is a study every week. Somebody somewhere has conducted some research which says men are awful.
Come on, surely not that see-through, not that transparent.
And then, of course, all the media then spends all day talking about it and reaffirming this view that, women need to fight back and all men are awful. And I always say, well, look, I'm more than happy for men to do 50% of the housework as long as women bring in 50% of the income and do 50% of removing spiders, from the garage.
I remove all the spiders from my house, Peter, I'll have you know that.
I'm sure you do.
All right, well, listen, just finally, perhaps more seriously, we have a Minister for Women and Equalities, but not a men's minister. Where do you stand on that?
Well, we're fast approaching November 19th, which is International Men's Day. And people often ask me whether it's needed. And I always say, look, there is so much resistance to it. That alone is proof of why we need International Men's Day. There is, we are supposed to be having open discussions and liberal conversations about all things in the world at the moment. And yet the one thing that is still taboo is men talking about equal rights. So I'm afraid I'm a big supporter of International Men's Day, and I really think it's something that's necessary and we need it. So bring it on.
Peter, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for chatting to us this morning.
Thanks for your patience. Thanks for having me on the show.
You are more than welcome. Peter Lloyd, author of Stand By Your Manhood, an essential guide for a modern man.
BBC Newcastle.
Be sure to check out Peter Lloyd's book titled Stand By Your Manhood. By supporting Peter, you're directly helping him fight for our cause, making the world a fairer place for all men. I have placed the links to his book as well as his YouTube channel in the video description. Please make sure to visit Peter and also support his channel. Thanks for watching, like this video and subscribe.